or to disguise their pagan worship with Jewish themes, so that this worship of the dying god, Lucifer, is hidden in what's called an interpretation, and that interpretation is known as Kabbalah. So from that point in the 6th century BC is where you have the beginnings of this formalized worship of Lucifer, in a sense.
I was seen that I've seen that Lucifer obviously translated means light. I've always think that this is about the worship of light, and again even Venus as that kind of a rebel planet, basically breaking away, as it were, and also the idea then that's why they call themselves the Illuminati, the illuminated ones, and the idea of the Enlightenment. And would you say that all these things are connected then in that way?
Well, yeah, absolutely, very much. The idea is the Kabbalah is the source of Gnosticism. So Gnosticism is a reversal of the Bible. So Gnosticism interprets the Bible in reverse. So the God, the creator of the universe, is then considered evil, and the devil is considered good. So the good God imposed a number of moral restrictions on us, whereas the evil God showed us the supposed light, quote unquote, light. And that light is liberty. So the devil taught us freedom. He taught us freedom from God. He taught us freedom from morals. And as simple as that sounds, that's as simple as it is. That's what they believe. They believe that moral restrictions are just conventions invented by human beings and are completely unnecessary, because they believe that life. So they reject God. So they believe that life is survival of the fittest.
David, what do you think? Because one thing that puzzles me here is the idea that if freedom is the thing that is kind of venerated, so to speak, then it becomes difficult to understand why ritualistic behavior, for instance, like if we talk about child sacrifice or what have you, that seems to be a very binding and obligating thing, and seems to be kind of contradictory to the idea of freedom and to do whatever it is that you want to do. Is that can you figure that out in a way? It's very difficult to understand the logic behind it in a way. What do you think?
Because you have to understand that human sacrifice, the sacrifice of a human child is the most evil act you can make, right? So that's the point. It's a process of emancipation in their eyes, because if you accept then, first of all, that God is evil, or that there is no God, which is basically the same concept, and that therefore there are no morals. There is no such thing as right and wrong. All that matters is Nietzsche's will to power. All that matters is the advancement of yourself above others. And you are entitled to do whatever it is that you want to or can to achieve the advancement of your own power. Not only that, but you should seek out to do what is otherwise considered evil as a way of demonstrating or actualizing this belief. And that's the point. So, many Gnostics...
So that should help you to kind of break you free from the moral structures and things like that?
It's demonstrating your freedom from morals, from God.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's demonstrating, it's showing your ability to do what others would consider evil. It's demonstrating your ability to refute. The most important, the best. There's a movie which was deliberately, I guess, marketed to explain this point, and that's Apocalypse Now.
Oh, really? Tell us more about it.
Yeah. Because it took me a long time to understand exactly what that movie was trying to say. But if you listen very carefully, Colonel Kurtzworthy is supposedly evil. He's evil in the minds of the rest of the world. But the Martin Sheen character discovers that there's a little bit more to it than that. That yes, he's gone too far, but he's discovered something. And what he says is that when he was leading his troops, or whatever his platoon back into they inoculated children in a Vietnamese village. They went away, and when they came back, the Viet Cong had chopped off the arms of all these children, and they were there in a pile. And he said that in that moment, he wasn't horrified, but it hit him like a diamond bullet piercing his skull. And what did he realize? He said, the genius in that. And what he meant is that he realized the ability to not be constrained by the limitations of what people believe is moral, but recognizing what will accomplish your ends. And being able to do whatever it is, to do acts which are considered otherwise horribly evil, but to recognize that they're necessary to do, and having what they understand as the moral strength to be able to do that. That's the whole point.
And that really also tells you something about the human mentality then, because in a way, really to be truly free in that sense, you would actually have to do nothing. But again, if you have to resort to acts of extreme violence in order to feel freedom, if you will, that really tells you how perverted the mindset and the morals of that particular person is, obviously. But, you know.
Absolutely.
Yes.
You know, see, the thing is that movie culture has caricaturized the idea of evil to the point where a lot of people don't even believe there's such a thing as evil because it's so ridiculed. But that's not what real. That's what evil is. It's in the human. It's a rejection of good. Absolutely. And so, you know, that explains 9/11. Right?
Give me a bit more on that.
Kissinger is a fan of Machiavelli. So is what's his name? The supposed leader of the neoconservative movement.
Leo Strauss?
No, not him. The current one. What's his name? Who wrote his PhD dissertation was on Machiavelli, and he's trying to revive that. He's trying to revive Machiavelli, and it's at the end of my book. For some reason, it's my mind, and so that's the point, right? It's the ends justify the means. Mm-hmm. So if it means having to sacrifice several thousand of your own citizens, but if it provides you with a pretext to advance this supposedly good cause,
right,
then it must be done. And they pride themselves in their ability to do these acts of evil because they think that it proves their strength.
And as far as I've been able to figure out as well, because you mentioned Hegel a little bit in the beginning here, and it's that idea that they've observed, you know, a little bit of what actually goes on in nature. Because again, we do have these cycles in nature. We have life and death. We have these opposites that actually are, in the true sense as I see it right now, that they are creating life on this planet, if you will. I mean, we must have winter in order to have summer. We must have actually death to have life in a way. But what I've seen is that they've adopted this philosophy and applied it to human civilization in that regard, you know, to their civilization, that they think that they need to do A and B in order to get C, their desired results. Would you say that that's a correct assertion?
It's an interesting point. It's never occurred to me before. I'd have to think about it.
Okay, right.
It's an interesting concept, yeah.
Right.
But you know, the good is such a simple idea. You know, it's so easy. We've been indoctrinated in this idea that we've had several philosophers who have attempted to achieve the truth, and that it's supposedly convoluted and requires, you know, tomes of convoluted, you know, terminologies and logic, but it doesn't. That's in fact, most of those philosophers were occult theologians. The truth is very, 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 very simple. It's just to believe in equality, to believe to do unto others. Then that's it. It's not much more complicated than that.
Right. I want to return a little bit again
to their belief is the opposite.
Okay, gotcha. I want to return a little bit, David, to the idea of the bloodlines again, the royal bloodlines, and tied back, and just ask you again there, if you've been able to find like the origins of the royal bloodlines, and if so, what what group of people were they? Do you think?
Okay. Well, what I've been able to find is, first I'll tell you the belief, and then I'll tell you the actuality, or what I've been able to identify as real.
Okay.
The belief is that they are descended from the fallen angels. So they believe, if you read the Bible, it says that the sons of God descended to earth and interbred with human beings to produce the Anakim, who were giants. But if you read the apocryphal works like the Book of Enoch, it explains that these sons of God were actually fallen angels. So Lucifer and his followers, and that when they descended to earth, they interbred with the female descendants of Cain, and to them they taught magic. So supposedly the origin of the Kabbalah is from the fallen angels who taught it to the human descendants of Cain prior to the flood. And according to the book, anyway, I don't want to complicate the story, but essentially these Anakim, some of them survived the flood. So when the Jews are commanded to conquer the land of Canaan, what happens there is they get frightened because they see the sons of Anak are there, who are giants, as Goliath was a giant. So this is a reference to the idea that the Canaanites essentially represent descendants of the Anakim, or the human half-breeds, supposedly divine half-breeds of fallen angels and humans.
Yes.
So this is very important because, first of all, it's from the Canaanites that the Jews adopt the worship of the dying God and these occult practices of human sacrifice and orgiastic rituals and so on and so forth. And the Bible states very clearly that every time it says that it warns the Jews not to. I'm not supposed to say Jews because at this time there is no Jews, they are Israelites. But anyway, some people like to make that minor point. I don't think it's much of an issue, but I have to say it.
Right.
Just so I don't appear like I'm misinformed. But so every time the Bible says don't worship the gods of the Canaanites, it also says don't intermarry with them. And yet, almost every single major person in the Bible is of Canaanite blood or marries a Canaanite. Most of the kings, like David and Solomon and was it Judah and Tamar, I guess. So anyway, that's where I get fuzzy. But you'll find that throughout. So basically, the line of Davidic kings in the Bible, from whom the Messiah is supposed to come from, have been intermarried with Canaanites. So in a sense, because the point of Kabbalah is to bring about the rule of the Messiah, who is a descendant of the Son of God. So under the understanding of the Kabbalah, the Messiah is a descendant of David, but also of the fallen angels and Lucifer through the Canaanites.
So are you saying that like Christ and the Antichrist is from the same line then, or what are you saying here?
What I'm saying is what they think.
Oh, yeah, I got that. But do you think that their ideology then is that Antichrist, or and Christ will come from the same line, from the same bloodline?
They don't believe in Christ. They believe the Messiah is still to come, who in a sense is the Antichrist, and this is why the intermarriage has to be so carefully monitored, because it has to preserve this so-called divine blood, which is basically Luciferian blood.
Right.
And they have to do this because they have to preserve this purity throughout history to produce eventually the Messiah.
Right.
And this is where you get dynasties and royalty and nonsense like that.
And the obsession by keeping that line, so to speak, and keeping track of the genealogy, and don't bring any other genes, if you will, or blood then into that particular line.